F123 My Team Career Mode Season 4 Round Number 2, the Australian Grand Prix. We're back here in Australia to have hopefully a better race than we did last time out in Bahrain, where we were leading the race and we didn't finish. We had a mechanical failure that was very, very unfortunate. We may not have won that race because Russell was looking very quick, but I think we were on for a pretty comfortable P2. Maybe a Wasser would have caught us, but it would have been a definite podium. And yeah, unfortunately, we had a mechanical failure. So we go in Australia with a little bit more hope. It was a gearbox issue, as you can see there. Not completely destroyed, only 80%, but you can't use it anymore. It is pretty much seized up. So new gearbox is going to have to go in the car. I have to choose my next rivalry between Verstappen and Leclerc. I ended up going with Verstappen. Seemed a little more beatable than Leclerc in the Ferrari, even though Red Bull are higher on R&D. Leclerc seems to be doing a little bit better recently, but as you can see, it's still very, very close on R&D. Aston Martin even upgrading even further along with everyone else, but keeping pretty much the same distance that they had before. McLaren just actually edging ahead of us now, so we're now the third quickest on R&D, but still really close with that top group. As we get into Q1, as you can see, it is rather wet here in Melbourne. Wet qualifying for us in Q1 at least, and yeah, I wasn't sure how to feel about this because haven't had some wet running in a little while, and the game seems to have balanced itself out a little bit more in the fact that, you know, I don't seem to be massively overpowered in the wet anymore. Maybe still a little bit compared to the AI, but it doesn't seem quite as powerful as it used to be. But as you can see, this first lap here in Q1 going pretty well. Purple through the first sector. You can see though I'm struggling with the car a little bit, just getting on power, getting on those curves. Car's a little bit all over the place, but we managed to put a lap together, and it is a lap good enough for P1 in Q1, but it is only Q1. Nothing really to go off there. No surprises really in out of Q1. Maybe Logan Sargent down in P21 in the Williams. That Williams is kind of fairly comfortably ahead of the back of the pack group. So for Sargent to be second to last, pretty unfortunate. His teammate Felipe Drugovich he actually managed to get out of Q1. So yeah, not looking good for Sargent considering he is now the main driver. He is the most experienced driver in that Williams team. Q2 here, as you can see, I went a little bit wide, kind of coming through that chicane off the back straight. I've got a car right up my arse as well. I think it's actually one of the Aston Martins. So under a little bit more pressure here. We still had a purple sector 1. It was only a green sector 2 though, and we've been a little bit out of shape through sector 3, but I think we're more than good enough. I mean, we're P7 already, and we're going to improve on that. So P2, Verstappen though, is the one who ends up going quickest in Q2, so that's a little bit surprising. Here we get through all the people, and Lando Norris gets knocked out in Q2. P16 for him. He must have just not got a lap together because he's way off the pace of his teammate Piastri. So that's a big shock there for Norris being out in Q2, but his teammate does make it through because that McLaren does look like it has a lot of potential, at least on paper. And as we get into Q3, we're now onto intermediate tyres, so it's still rather wet out there, but it's not massively raining. It's just that the track is still rather wet, and I mean, you can see all the spray coming off the tyres, but we are on intermediate tyres now and feeling a little bit more confident, but at the same time, the drier it gets, the less advantage I seem to have. So it's becoming more like really it should be. There is still definitely something in the game where, you know, in the wet, for whatever reason, the player is a little bit better than the AI, which is weird because I feel like in previous games it was always the other way around. But it is what it is in this game, I guess, as we head through the chicane once again quite wide. Really struggling with that one, just going a bit too deep into the left-hander, and then as you go through the right part of the chicane, just dragging too far out wide and then getting stuck on those curbs. So a little bit leery through some of these final corners here. I don't know if it's the track starting to dry up. I mean, it still looks very, very wet, but you never know with the game. Sometimes it looks wet out there, there's a lot of spray, and the game will tell you to change onto dry tyres. So a little bit strange there, but as we head around the final corner, not too bad. Decent enough lap put together, and we cross the line, we go quickest, but in the end, it ends up being P4 for us, so we're not quite at the top, but it's still a good result. George Russell gets his first pole position of the season. And then alongside him is Yuki Tsunoda in the Ferrari, beating his teammate Leclerc once again. Then it's Verstappen, myself, then Leclerc, Piastri, Wasser's all the way down in P7, and my teammate down in P9, so he's got a little bit of work to do in this Australian Grand Prix.
Welcome to Melbourne, and welcome to the Australian sun. We're still getting used to some track revisions here, but the core hasn't changed. This is a beloved classic of the F1 calendar, and it's time for the Australian Grand Prix. So here we are at Albert Park Circuit, 3.28 miles around, with the streets making for a bumpy surface with little undulation. There are 14 corners around the lake, with the best passing opportunities coming at turn 1 and turn 3. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Yuki Tsunoda completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Davies, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Iwasa, Sainz, Albon, Hamilton, Gasly, Drugovich, De Vries, Ocon, Joe, Norris, Bottas, Liam Lawson, Doohan, Sargent, Stroll, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And a warm welcome, of course, to my co-commentator here today. It's Natalie Pinkham. Why don't we get things rolling by talking about George Russell?
What a quality performance. The big question, though, is how does that translate on race day? Can they hold on to that lead? One more thing to consider is the strategy element. How far can the drivers push these tyres? And who is going to blink first for fresh rubber? It'll be interesting to see if the leaders have to compromise their plan to cover off the cars behind them.
All right, here we go for the Australian Grand Prix in Season 2. It is now dry conditions for this race, so 5 lights are out. It's quite cloudy out there, but there shouldn't be any rain for this race. We get a pretty good start, but then we kind of get boxed in by Tsunoda up ahead, and we're actually having to check ourselves a little bit because I think that's Carlos Sainz in the Red Bull is having a look at us around the outside. So we didn't have the best start in the world, to be honest. Usually we make a position or two off the start, but kind of got boxed in by Tsunoda, who is now going toe-to-toe with Max Verstappen up ahead. Russell already kind of going off in the lead. I think he started on medium tyres as we then nearly go into the back of Tsunoda as he just doesn't get the exit off that corner that we do. And we're actually having to defend a little bit now from who is now Charles Leclerc, the car behind us, in the Ferrari. We're in a Ferrari sandwich. I was trying to mix two sentences together there as we go down this main kind of back straight here, and Leclerc still right over the back of us. Tsunoda now up the back of Verstappen ahead. Like I said, Russell's on the medium tyres and he's really got a good start in this race, so looking good for him in the Aston Martin as we go down into the one of the final corners here. Leclerc's still looking at a move on us around the outside, but we managed to defend. Tsunoda gets back past Verstappen again, so that is good from him to make that position back up once again. And we head into the final couple of corners here with Leclerc behind us. We've caught back up a little bit to the cars ahead with them fighting, but it's going to continue as P4 so we don't make up a position at the start of this race. So that is that. Felipe Drugovich in the Williams had a cracking start. I think he started about P12, so we had a pretty good qualifying, especially compared to his teammate in P21. And before they even get into turn 1, Drugovich is up to P8. So the rookie driver on in his second race in Formula 1 is currently sitting in the points in the Williams, as now lap number 2, Leclerc is coming for us. He's pretty quick in that Ferrari. He dives down the inside. We give him the space, but we're going to try and hang it round the outside of the next corner as well. Go a little bit too deep, but just about stay within the confines of the track. He tries coming back again into the second to last corner, but doesn't manage to do it. We stay ahead of Leclerc, but we're definitely under more pressure from behind than we're putting pressure on the cars ahead. Speaking of those cars ahead, and Verstappen still trying to make his way past Yuki Tsunoda once again. Great little battle going on between these two here as Verstappen goes round the outside and gets up into second place. He's going to see if he can now charge on ahead, as just behind myself, I believe this is, we have got, that's a Yumu Iwasa who's got Oscar Piastri in the McLaren in front of him, and he's going to try and go round the outside of the McLaren driver. Remember, this Aston Martin is the quickest car. Iwasa had a podium second place last time out in Bahrain. He had pole position in Bahrain as well. It was a 1-2 for Aston Martin as we head way too deep around that chicane, and that is an easy move for Leclerc. We've been defending from him for a few laps, well, only 2 laps actually, because it's only lap 3, but Leclerc is now past us, and we are falling backwards, which doesn't happen a lot in this game, but we are actually falling backwards in this race instead of moving forwards. Hamilton is also on the charge against my teammate Alexander Albon as he tries to go round the outside into that corner there. Albon still on the inside, but Hamilton will just about get ahead. There's been a few frosty moments between these two in the past when Albon was at Red Bull, but this time Hamilton gets through cleanly. We are still kind of chasing down Leclerc, but it's not Leclerc we have to worry about. It's a Wasser behind us who's storming through in the Aston Martin, a little bit of tyre banging, and he gets past us as well. So we're now down to P6. We are going backwards here. We're down 2 positions from the start of this race. It is not looking great at the moment. We just don't seem to have the pace in the car. The Wasser definitely has the pace in the car after a poor qualifying for him in this car of P7. He's now also past Leclerc and up into P4, so he's making positions in this race. His teammate, meanwhile, of George Russell, is just cruising out front on the medium tyre, so he's on slower tyres than everyone else, and he's pulling a gap still to Verstappen behind, and is just in his own race. I mean, as long as he doesn't have any issues and there's no safety cars, Russell's got this one in the bag for, you know, back-to-back wins. So, yeah, looking pretty good for the British driver at the moment. As we continue with Wasser and Leclerc in front, once again, still struggling a bit through that corner. We've actually got Piastri now behind us, who's starting to put a bit of pressure on. Behind him is Sainz as well. Everybody around us looks quick. We're kind of in the middle at the moment, so we'll have to see how this works out. It's not good for the other McLaren though, as Lando Norris has a mechanical failure on lap 11, and he's out of the race. It was a mechanical failure for Piastri in Bahrain, and it's a mechanical failure for the other McLaren of Norris in Australia. Poor stuff for them. He is out of this race. As then on lap 12, we're coming into the pits for our change onto medium tyres, going soft to mediums in this race, which is what pretty much everybody else is doing bar Russell and a couple of others. Because we didn't use the dry tyres in qualifying, we have those dry tyres to use the softs. So we do that. We come out just behind Leclerc and Verstappen, who's just about ahead of us. And actually in the end, because Verstappen came into the pits before Tsunoda, as we go round the outside of Piastri as we get into turn 1. It looked like he might have actually got ahead of us there, but we just managed to keep the position. But the Ferraris have actually switched around. It is now Leclerc chasing down Verstappen for second place. So Tsunoda ended up coming in 1 lap later than his teammate and then Verstappen, and that's cost him kind of this battle for the podium, and it's switched the 2 Ferraris around. Meanwhile, we're under threat from losing even more positions, as now Piastri's really putting on a charge and trying to get past as we head through this chicane section here. We're not close enough to the cars ahead. We're currently sitting in P6. We started in P4. It may be P7 in a second, as Piastri easily gets past us in DRS, and we are now in P7. And we have to worry as well because Sainz is behind us and he is pretty quick as well. So we're in a bit of a predicament right now. We just don't seem to quite have the pace. Lap number 20, Piastri's still not quite caught up to the guys ahead with DRS yet, so we're going to take advantage of that and we're going to dive to the outside, late braking move on the Australian at his home Grand Prix, and we're going to just about switch our car through and get back up into P6. But I feel like this may be a bit of a battle for the rest of the race, as Piastri is definitely quick here, and we in some places are quick and in other places just aren't. This is one of the places where we really aren't quick, and Piastri does the same thing he did before and just goes back around the outside of us, and once again we find ourselves in 7th, defending from Sainz a little bit. As once again down the back straight, this time we're going to try and get a run. We've got very close to the back of Piastri. We're going to see if we can get past him before we get to the chicane. We're around the outside. We're going to be brave and hold it there, and we're going to get it done. It's a purple sector 2 as well because of how much ERS and DRS we were using. Sainz then is going to try and get past Piastri because he's now been caught off guard a little bit. So here the Spaniard goes around the outside of the Aussie. They're going to be side by side coming through these final couple of corners. Piastri is putting up a damn good fight here in his home Grand Prix, but Sainz looks like he might have done it. No, maybe not yet. Piastri's still ahead, and Piastri does stay ahead. So great defending from the Australian to stay ahead of the Spaniard. My teammate Alexander Albon has been staring at the back of Lewis Hamilton for most of this race, But on this lap, he's finally going to sniff an opportunity. He's going to go round to the outside of the Australian, and he's going to try and make this move stick, and I think he's going to do it. Yes, he is. He's not an Australian. I just called Hamilton an Australian. That is not true, but either or, Albon gets past, and he's now back ahead of Hamilton once again. Sainz and Piastri still battling it out, which is massively helping me out because, yeah, they were putting a lot of pressure on me, and I've actually caught up to the cars ahead now as well. Sainz does eventually get past Piastri, though. As you can see here, massive train forming of Leclerc. Iwasa is now trying to get past Leclerc. Here he goes round the outside, and he's up into, I believe, P3? I think that's P3 for Iwasa. We are in this massive train with the two Ferraris ahead. Tsunoda, the one right ahead of us, and we're going to try and go round the outside of him, similar vein to what we did with Piastri, and we get it done and just about cut him off at the edge of the chicane. That we can boost our ERS and stay ahead of him down into the next corner. We're not going to manage to get Leclerc in the end, so it's going to be P5 to finish this race. So we're actually going to finish one position lower than what we started, which doesn't happen very often in this game. Usually we move forward or stay where we are, but it's P5 for us. It was a pretty exciting race, and it's some decent points, but yeah, we did fall back a position, which is a little bit unfortunate. It's dominance from Aston Martin again, though. P1 for Russell. Aston Martin really looking good in this Season 4.
Aston Martin deserved a win today, and they got it. So, Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
Well, they managed their tyres to absolute perfection. A tyre whisperer, in fact. And that is what set them apart.
The Aston Martin team will be very happy with today's performance. And of course, the final result. Another display of excellent driving and excellent teamwork. And a well-deserved first-place finish.
So it's another double podium for Aston Martin. It's not a 1-2 this time, though. Russell wins once again. Iwasa's P3 this time, and Verstappen gets himself back up on the podium there in P2. A good race from him to get ahead of Tsunoda and stay ahead. So Red Bull looking up this season as well. As it was a decent race from Sainz as well. I'm not sure if he finished behind Piastri or ahead of him. I'm not sure. We'll see in a sec. But a good race from him nonetheless. He did finish ahead in P7 there for Sainz, so okay, but when your teammate's P2, it's not the best, but it was very close from P2 all the way back to, well, in the end, actually all the way back to like Hamilton in P10. It was very, very close. So P5 for us, we finally pick up some points for this season, and Albon comes home P9, so he does finish ahead of Hamilton, which is very good after he was staring at the back of that Mercedes for a majority of the race. Russell takes a fairly commanding lead in the Drivers' Championship now with 2 wins to start the season. Iwasa is there in second place in the Aston Martin, and Verstappen there on the podium for the championship at the moment. But yeah, looking very good for Russell at the moment. I think other teams really need to start, bringing some upgrades to their cars, or Iwasa needs to start, performing a little bit more towards Russell's capability, because he had a really good qualifying in Bahrain, and then this time around, yeah, qualifying wasn't great, and he managed to get a podium, but that car's quite a bit quicker than everybody else, so you should at least expect that. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.